right, Doc, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, not hearing you, Doc.
Sorry, Edinburgh, Scotland.
Yeah, yes, oh, Scotland, yes, yes. And I found him to be a wonderful person, somebody you can talk to, somebody who's easygoing, somebody who is non-judgmental, somebody who you can share things with. That's what I have seen, and I am being very, very honest. So, and I've seen how he deals with people, and they always have a sense of comfort in his presence and so on. You know. So, so I think he's a wonderful person. I think he's a wonderful minister also. You know, he connects well with his congregants and so on. And I also think he's very good at lecturing. You know, he's a fantastic lecturer also. You know, he's clear with his delivery. When he finishes it, you know, you learn a lot and you can apply what he says to your life because he's a very practical person. And so I am honored, and it's also a pleasure for me to introduce to us um, Dr. Hazel, United Church Warden at UTC. And if there's anything else you want to share about yourself, Doc, you can also share it. And I also invite you to tell Doc a little bit about yourself before he begins. Like, tell him your name and your church and anything else you might like to do.
Right, right. Well, good morning, gentlemen. And a happy New Year. It's still kind of new, so happy New Year, and welcome to this journey. This journey, I guess, to clarify your sense of call, and hopefully also to clarify what the Lord calling you to do. But I must say that that is a perpetual call. That it never just ends one time. And so there's a sense in which we're always seeking the Lord to to clarify His call. So as Reverend Stone said, I am Dave Hazel. Um, I graduated from UTC, so I actually attended UTC as a student minister preparing for ministry. Um, and when I left UTC in '91, I went to Meadowbrook. So I served in Meadowbrook at the time. Reverend Raymond Polk was the minister there. So I served as his associate. And I also served as chaplain at the high school and the prep school, Mona, at Meadowbrook Prep and High School. Then I was called to Lincoln Kirk United in Franklin Town. And so I served there for a number of years. And it's while I was at Lincoln Kirk that I wanted to do further training, further studies, and I applied to the church um, to do something in the area of family life. And so what eventually happened was they were able to get a scholarship for me to go to Scotland. So I went to the University of Edinburgh and did a PhD there. And my thesis looked on family patterns in the Caribbean and pastoral responses to them. Then I came back to Jamaica and served as pastor at Shortwood United Church and was at Shortwood for about 4 years before I received and accepted a call to Elmsley United Church in Cayman. And so I served as a pastor there for about 8 years. Um, Pastor at Elmsley, South Sound United, and Robert Young at the time. So three congregations in Cayman. And so in 19 in not that 19 in 2015 when the period of the time for my of being in Cayman was coming to an end. Again, I spoke with the church about options, and it was just about that time that the warden here at UTC, who was Reverend Henley Bernard, was retiring. So training has always been something that I was interested in, and working with pastors in training. And so they offered that to me, and I gobbled it up. So I was happy to come back as the warden at the United Church. The warden is the if you know anything about the UTC setup, it's a institution that is a collaboration between six different denominations, and the United Church is one of those denominations. But you have the Baptists, you have the Methodists, the Moravians, the Anglicans, and the Lutherans, who make up the combinations. And so they send students from all of those denominations here. But we also get students from denominations that have no connection with the management of, of UTC. But all of this, the six contributing denominations have a member of staff that is called a warden, and the warden has responsibility for oversight of the students from that denom. As you probably are aware, for a number of years we didn't have any students at all being trained. But happily, um, this year, this academic year, we welcome two students. So we have two students from United Church now being trained at UTC, and I and the Reverend and Mrs. Karen Francis, serve as warden and associate warden to our students. So that's a little bit about me. Um, I when I served with Reverend Coke in Meadowbrook, I also served as United Church's director of youth ministries. So youth ministry has always been something that I'm very interested in, and working with young people, working with young men especially, is an area of work that I have an interest in. I'm married to Maureen. I've been married now for 40 odd years. That's about 34 years now. Um, and so that's a little bit about me and my history. So tell me a little bit about you. I don't know who want to go first. So Andrew, you're a camera now work. You set up the still, but me I love see you. This is what you look like.
It's working, man.
All right, turn it down a little bit if you can. So and slave of Christ is what's your name?
My name is Everton. Everton Curtin.
Not Everton Blender.
Nah, not that one. Not the singer, not the singer, the theologian.
Everton Curtin, you say?
Yeah.
All right. And tell me a little bit about yourself, Everton.
Well, you mean regarding ministry or just in general?
Yeah, in general, regarding Everton.
All right. Well, I am a Christian, first of all, child of God.
Mm-hmm.
I've been married for almost 9 years. This coming March is going to be our 9th-year anniversary. I got married when I was 20 years old, so I'm about to be 29 very soon. Actually, this month I'm going to be 29 on the 28th of January.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, so I'm getting older. I'm getting older.
They don't want me to say. They don't want me to say.
Yeah, this is a unique year because my father I was born when my father was 29, so when he looks at me and he sees where I am in life, he is proud because my grandfather was a pastor and my father used to follow him everywhere. So people were expecting him to become a pastor, but he never went down that route. So for his son to become, well, to be in the process to becoming a reverend, he is very elated and very proud. He watches my sermons all the time, gives me critique, gives me encouragement, reminds me all the time that I remind him of his father, my grandfather, who was a pastor. I have a daughter. We were able, by the grace of God, to produce one child. sadly but gracefully, we lost two babies through a miscarriage. You know, we have a room for suffering and affliction in our theology because we believe that God is sovereign, God is great, God is good, and He always has a morally sufficient reason for why He ordains things to come to pass that we may think are unfortunate and bad. We could quote the story of Joseph, who said to his brothers that they meant evil against him for all the things that they did to him and what he went through in the process. But God meant it for good. The direct antecedent for it is the evil that they meant. So, Hebrew and grammatically, he was talking about the evil that took place. So, we have one child. My journey to become a reverend has been a roller coaster because I want to be a reverend since I was 16. First time I preached ever in my life was at my grandfather's church. I wanted to be a reverend from that day onward. But the journey leading up to now has been up and down, leading to here. It's a long story. I don't want to bore you with it, but God has brought me to this point where I'm now in the process, and I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that I'm now very active in the United Church. I preach almost every Sunday. I'm actually preaching on my birthday at the Lucy United Church. I'm excited for that. It's a very big congregation. It makes you nervous if you're not used to public speaking, but fortunately, God has given me the gift and the passion and the zeal for public speaking and preaching, so it won't be a problem. But I'm very grateful, as Paul says, that this grace of God was given to him that he may preach the unfathomable riches of Christ. To preach his word is grace. To preach his word is mercy that we should always be thankful for. And finally, I am one of 4 children, so I have 2 brothers, 1 sister. My mother and my father are still alive. I'm grateful for that. I used to be a fitness instructor, recently resigned because the obligations in ministry have become so much more demanding, and my job gets in the way too much of this endeavor. So I recently resigned, and I'm now full-time in the focus of becoming a reverend one day. And financially, I'll be fine because God has provided a way for me to not worry about anything financially with my family support and the continual honorariums that I get when I preach at various churches. So, I mean, that's about it. There's so much more to say, and looking forward to hearing about your journey in becoming a doctor in theology, because that's my goal. One day, I'm going to be Dr. Curtin in theology as well. I love to read. I love to study. I am very, as I would say, not an expert, but very good at the original language of the Greek. So when I preach, I make sure that I incorporate the Greek. I'm an autodidact, so I'm self-taught. I taught myself theology, systematic theology, Greek. Haven't started on Hebrew yet, but I'm going to get there eventually. So studying is a passion for me, and my degree won't end at the bachelor's level when I graduate from the college, but I will continue with my studies as I balance ministry, pastoring, being a reverend, and a shepherd to God's people. That's about it.
And you're originally from Hanover?
Yes, originally.
Okay. That's my father's parish. He's from Lucy.
Yes, that's good. That's good. My mother is from Lucy. My father is from Sandy Bay. Both of them Hanover. Both of them Hanover.
Right. I don't know if you know a place named Ponside.
Yes, actually preached there 2 Sundays ago. Went there. The road is so bad. The road is bad right
I
now.
understand. So if you buck up anybody named Hazel up that side there, then probably related to me.
Hazel. All right.
All right, great. Thank you for that, Everton.
Sure.
Andrew, tell me a little bit about you.
Okay, Doc. I'm glad you said it. Tell you a little about me.
God, there's a lot
'Cause
to tell, not true?
no, there's not a lot. And then unlike Everton, I consider myself a man of few words.
Okay.
All right, Andrew Goldburn is the name. Also, I am married. What from 2005, July 2005. God has blessed me with a wonderful wife. No kids as yet. I'm actually an elder and the men president at Salem United Church of Jamaica. That's in Chapelton, Clarendon.
Okay.
Past student of Clarendon College. My mom has what, three of us, of which I am a twin. My brother isn't here. My brother is residing in Trinidad.
Mm. He's at university?
Actually, he's finished university and is working there now.
Okay.
I currently work with Ministry of Education in the division NCT Vet that deals with certification and assessment. Ah, basically that's it.
That's it, eh? All right.
Yes.
All right, no problem. Well, hopefully as we talk, we'll discover a few more things about each other. Um, and I think I want to commend you guys for taking this path of discerning. For you, Everton, it looked like say it never needed a lot of discernment 'cause from early out. It seemed like you felt like this was the direction that the Lord wanted you to go in. So it was more a question of just finding the right time. Um, but tell me a little bit for you, both for each of you, what for you were some of the things that you thought contributed to your sense that God was calling you to ministry? Now, I'm sure you probably even written this out already. You probably have talked about it, and trust me, between now and when you finish your training, you're going to talk about this a million and one times. But I think it's important for us to talk about it and to to juggle it so that it becomes clearer and clearer. Because one of the reasons is because we go through times in life when ministry backs us in the face so hot that we wonder, did we make the right decision? Are we going down the right road? And so we have to each be assured as to how did God call us? Why do we say God called us? So that can be part of the assurance that keeps us confident about why we need to stay with the Lord in ministry. So tell me a little bit about some of the things for each of you that you believe contributed to your sensing that God was calling you to ministry.
Rene, is he Shaka?
All right. For me,
Yeah.
all right. One of
Hmm?
the thing is I always say to myself, I want to learn more of the Bible.
Okay.
When I just became a Christian, I usually read the Bible a lot.
Yeah.
Smart, you know.
And so and then hearing of the last days, when the Bible will be taken away from us,
Mm-hmm.
and is what you know, what you have hidden in your heart, that which you will be required to draw upon.
Mm-hmm.
So using that now, I said, all right, I want to learn more of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to CETIS. That's the Open Bible College for the Open Bible. That's out in Tottenham Park, St. Catherine.
I see. Mm-hmm.
So I went to investigate if they have any program where I can learn more of the Bible. And so I was introduced to a program where I think it hermeneutics.
Mm-hmm.
So I started in that program where I was learning um how to how to develop, how to structure your sermon. And I said, I know this is not what I wanted. And so I realized after attending about 2 classes, I realized they introduced me to more things now. So I started learning more things. So I end up leaving that class and enroll in the college now,
Mm-hmm.
where I started learning different things. So not only how to structure your sermon, but I start learning now about major and minor prophets and the different cult and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat and I said to myself, but God, I know this me did want. So how did I reach here?
Mm-hmm.
And I continued because it was becoming interesting. But being like Jonah,
Mm-hmm.
so I finished first year there. Now I moved on to second year, and one day I went to school and I realized that because all right, what they do is that during your training,
Mm-hmm.
we break for half an hour, which we have chaplain. So during chaplain now, like the senior students now you'd have praise and worship,
Mm-hmm.
and then you'd have a senior student doing a 20 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes sermon.
Correcto.
Yeah.
I said, listen me, I know this me come here so far, no. So I run. Because when I look at the roster, I realize that I am down one evening to to do the exhortation.
Mm-hmm.
I said, no, sir, I'm not ready for this yet. So me run.
Yes. You do the Jonah thing.
Yes, man. I take on myself.
Yes.
About a month or two after, sometime afterwards, though, one of the acting the vice principal at the time of the college, they they form a new campus in Maypen now. And so she called me and said, I haven't seen you back at school. What happened? So I didn't tell her that I'm not ready for preach it. Me find all sort of excuses
Mm-hmm.
to give her. So she said, all right, never mind. We have a new campus now in Maypen, which is nearer to you. So you can start attend that one.
Mm-hmm.
I started going to that one now. And the same thing happened. So I take away myself again. So at church now, they would ask me to lead and so forth. So every time them ask me to lead, I never turn up. Me tell them, mm-mm, I'm not ready as yet for that. But God will have it for our late minister, Reverend Hyacinth Edwards. She is a leader like this. She don't ask you to do things. She tells you to do it. That's the confidence she has in her members. And if she don't feel confident in you, she's not gonna ask you.
Mm.
I think she was appointed by God. And so she asked me, she don't ask me, she said to me once, I'm to come prepared to be the liturgist. I tried to say no, but it just couldn't work. Eventually I did it, and on several occasions. And then I remember she called me once and said, okay, you're down to bring the word. I said, Father, what is this for me now? Because it doesn't, the only way you can escape Reverend Edward is if she asks you to do something, the only way you can escape that, you must be really, really sick.
Sick unto death.
Sick unto death. And so I realized that I could not get out of that net.
Mm.
And so I eventually did it. And then from then, I have been doing it.
Mhm.
So I realized that it doesn't really matter what you do once you are called to do something. No matter how you run like Jonah, you will have to come back and to do it. And so that's what happened to me.
Got you. All right. So it looks like that influence of Reverend Hyacinth and
Give me
the
a pen.
experience of actually
Over
doing
there in the
some
corner.
things in
the cup.
in ministry
Yes.
were part of what
Yes.
contributed to taking it to
Yeah.
where you are now.
Definitely.
You hear Everton, him say him is not a man of much words. I him say that, you know. But him give you a good explanation a while ago. Anyway, yes, Everton, what were some of the things that you think contributed to at age 60, from age 16, you say?
Yes.
You have had that interest. What do you think were some of the things that contributed to that sense, that pull, that sense that God had called you?
So some of the things that indicated to me that God has called me, just to be clear, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I originally wanted to be a doctor, a cardiothoracic surgeon. I can remember very vividly when I was 6 years old. I was in and out of the hospital, so I found the care of a doctor, the interest of a doctor, the intelligence of a doctor very interesting. So I wanted to be a doctor, to tell my dad that that's what I want to be. I was never the kind of child who was particularly academically gifted. And it was very surprising to my father because he was very academically gifted when he was younger.
Mhm.
So I would do very bad in school, very bad. I would come last when the academic levels and grades would come in and results would come in. I would be the last on the list. In grade 4, I came second to last to a young man, and the reason why is because when he would come to school, he would not come to class at all. That was the only reason I came second to last to him. So I wasn't very good in my academic endeavors when I was in early on in school. So becoming a doctor was very questionable. The reason why I was slow in school was because at nights and during the days when I wouldn't have school, I would watch TV. I would watch cartoons. I would watch games. I would build toys and formulate imaginary skits in my mind and act them out with the toys. I would mimic the way the cartoons speak, and I would make particular episodes with the toys I would build from tape, and I would speak and I would talk, and through that, it has caused me, and as you can notice, I don't sound particularly Jamaican. It has caused me to have an accent that did not come from living in different countries or traveling the world. I've never been out of Jamaica to any of the European countries. I've been to the Cayman Islands when I was 13, and I've been to the island of St. Lucia for work for 3 years, and none of those countries could give you an accent. So the accent that I have is from watching TV, talking like this most of the time, and then ending up in the hotel industry when I was 19 for 10 years, been speaking like this to people from different countries. So Patois is not natural to me. To speak Patois, I have to do it on purpose. So when I'm around my friends who would find it offensive to speak like this, I would turn on the Patois. It comes out funny, but they understand what I'm saying. So wanted to be a doctor, and I didn't do well in school. But when I was in grade 8, and I continually did bad in school, my father had a meeting with me. He said, "Everton, if you continue to do like this in school, I'm going to pay someone to build a fruit cart for you. And when you graduate, I'm going to sponsor some fruits for you to go on the street and sell fruits." That woke something up in me. I'm like, I'm not selling fruits anywhere. And then in grade 9, I came first in my class. In grade 10, I went in the brightest grade 10 and the brightest grade 11. I graduated from high school with 5 subjects. But during that experience, during that process, because I was a Christian at the time, I got baptized at 13, I thought it was appropriate to join the Christian club. In high school, there was the ISCF, Inter-School Christian Fellowship. I joined that club in high school, and it was during the year when the president of that Christian club was graduating. And when she graduated, they wanted to have her replaced, but no one volunteered. And little old me put my hand up. I'll do it. Not someone who would speak very well, not someone who was not afraid of a crowd. I would say I was probably way more timid than Andrew Goldborn. There's no way you'd see me talking in front of anybody. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And when I became the president, the person who appointed me told me to preach. I want you to give a presentation to the children in the Christian club. You're the president, give a presentation. So I found a scripture and I started speaking on that scripture, and from that day I noticed something. I'm like, I really like this. This is pretty good. They were attentive, and I spoke about God's word, the God I worship, the God I serve, the God who saved me from his wrath, and the God who continues to sustain me. I was able to speak about him, and when I spoke about him, I was so bold, I was so articulate, I was so consistent. I didn't feel afraid. I'm like, this is something that, I could see myself doing.
Yeah.
I was so excited. I went to my grandfather. I told my grandfather, I think I want to be a pastor one day. But in myself, I don't think I was ready for what he had to say. He said, really? Okay, we have a youth Sunday coming up. You're preaching. Oh. I'm like, whoa, okay. All right, so that was unexpected. So I'm like, okay, what am I gonna say? So I went to Galatians chapter 5, and the sermon was about the fruits of the Spirit. I listed them out, and I made comments on each and why we should seek to be exemplary of these different attributes of the fruit of the Spirit. It was a very small congregation. There was only one young person in the church. Everybody else was in their 60s and above. And from that day on, something woke up inside me that I couldn't explain. I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. But from the theological perspective, when you look at 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1, if you read the King James Version, there are two different Greek words that are translated as desire. But when you read other translations, they bring out the sense of the Greek word. The first Greek word is orego. The second Greek word is epithumeo. Both of these words are translated desire in the King James Version, but the version I'm using is the New American Standard. It says, it is a trustworthy statement. If any man aspires, that's orego, to the office of overseer, it is a fine work. He desires, the Greek word epithumeo. And when you look at these two words, oreo, which is to aspire, is the external pursuit of the office of overseer, because it means to reach, to stretch out, to stretch oneself, to reach forth, to grasp. It's the external pursuit of the office. And the other Greek word, epithumeo, it says the meaning of this word is to set one's heart upon, to desire, to lust after, to covet. So this is the inward desire. So we have the external pursuit and the inward desire. The way someone knows that he is called for the ministry, one of the ways is it something that you're pursuing, and is that pursuit based upon or founded upon an inward desire that you have? It is not the case where you desire to do it, but you're not pursuing it. Or it's not the case where you're pursuing it, but you don't want to do it. So looking at it from a biblical perspective, Paul says, if this desire is there, if this aspiration is there, it is a fine work he desires. And then when you continue on in this chapter, 1 Timothy chapter 3, it outlines the qualifications that you have to have. Can't be a drunkard, can't be a lover of money, can't be one who doesn't have his house in order, can't be a new convert, can't be one who is not hospitable, not gentle, not able to teach. All the qualities that I won't name out because I think I've been going too long so far. But to close it all off, the signs that I've seen is I have a desire, I'm pursuing it. And when I look at my life and God's sovereignty in my life, God continues to bring people in my life. He brings opportunities in my life. He brings the right circumstances and situations in my life that all point me to this path and this decision. That all point me to this path and this decision.
Gotcha.
That all point me to this path and this decision. And whenever I try, because I've tried to go another way. I've tried to turn away from it. Every time I try to turn away from it, and like, I don't think this is for me. I think it's difficult, too hard. The temptations, the struggles, I don't think this is for me. Every single time I've turned away. Which is why now, at almost 29 years old, I'm finally on the journey. I've been, throughout the years, trying to do something else. Every single time I've tried to do something else, God, in His sovereignty, in His power, has turned me back on this path. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to win. I'm not going to win this battle.
Give up.
I'm not going to win this battle. I'm just going to let it all run smoothly, run naturally. And because I'm called for the ministry, this just comes natural. It's not a fight. It's not a battle. It's not anything regarding resistance to the ministry. It's natural. And that, among many other things that I will not say, is the reason why I believe that God has called me. And these are some of the signs that I can articulate and outline as to why God has called me for the ministry. That's about it.
What's your home church, Everton?
My home church right now is the Lucy United Church in
Okay.
Hanover.
Okay.
The Reverend Glenroy Clark is
That's
my
right.
minister.
That's right. Yes. Excellent. Let me see if I can bring up a brief presentation.
Wait, hold on. So I wanted to ask you a question. You said that your thesis was about family patterns in the Caribbean and pastoral responses to them. I wanted to ask you what your doctoral dissertation was about.
That's what it was about.
Oh, so that was the doctoral dissertation.
That's correct.
Oh, did you have to do a master's before you did your doctorate?
No, as it turned out, I had to register for a master's, but I was able. The system in the Britain is that you can upgrade. So once I had actually done the initial work for the master's, on the basis of that, I was able to apply to upgrade to the PhD. And
Okay,
so,
okay. The reason why I asked is because usually there is a master's degree that you would have to do, but you cleared that up. You said that you did the necessary work for the master's, and then you went, okay, I understand. Okay.
Correct. Now, are you seeing my screen?
Yes, yes.
All right, great. All right, so we're talking in the session about God's call on your life. And I want to use the experience of Isaiah to highlight a few other things related to the call. And I really appreciate what you guys have shared with me. As I say to you, you will have many occasions to talk about that. And probably you will discover that each time you talk about it, some other aspect of the call becomes clearer in your mind. But what ultimately you want to be able to do is to be confident that a God call you. That this is not a figment of my imagination, that I'm not just doing this because my grandmother did want me to become a pastor. I'm not just doing this because, my hero was my pastor when I was a teenager, and therefore you're trying to reach to be like that hero. And it's not because you're watching preachers on TV and you like how them preach and so on. Because one of the things that you come to realize, for example, is that a call to pastoral ministry is more than a call to be a preacher. Because pastoral ministry is much more than preaching. And unfortunately, some people come here to UTC in preparation for ministry, and their notion of ministry is preaching. So when they come to face the challenges of visiting the sick, going to hospital, burying the dead, dealing with death and all of those issues, some of the pastoral issues, some of the existential issues, the life and death concerns, dealing with issues of administration, and most importantly, dealing with people management. Sometimes when you encounter those realities, then ministry is not as bright and shiny as it looks at the start. But what very often is the thing that keeps you going, the more your eyes open up as to what ministry is, what keeps you going, is the confidence that God called me. And when He called me, I might not have had all the picture in my mind as to what ministry involved, but I am confident that He called me. And so, as that picture becomes clearer, I am up for it. I am available to God. I want to be used by God. And of course, certainly in my experience, and probably in Brian's experience, he can share with you also, Reverend Stone can share with you, that sometimes your call to ministry doesn't mean you're called to be in one area of ministry for the rest of your life. For some of us, it is. And some of us will be pastors all of their life, you know. Um, and some serve well as pastors for 30 and 40 years, you know. Um, Sometimes in different charges, sometimes even one congregation or in one charge. But more often than not, you will find the experience will take you not only to different congregations, but it might take you to different aspects of ministry. So I served for almost 30 years as a pastor. When I started, I had the opportunity to serve alongside my pastoring as director of youth ministries. And now I am training pastors. I'm more in the area of training. There people like our general secretary has moved from pastoring into more administration. So the direction might change. Some might move from you know less uh, located from being located in one place to a more itinerant type of ministry where you are moving from one place to another or to some other area of specialization like counseling, or other areas of ministry. So always think of the possibility that you might be moving in different directions, but at the moment, at some stage in your ministry journey, you are likely to be a pastor. And hearing God's voice in each of those stages of your walk is important. And in the experience of Isaiah, we see that sense of Isaiah hearing God's voice. So let me read for you this very, very common passage from Isaiah chapter 6, which is often considered to be uh, um, uh, an account of Isaiah's call to ministry. So, in the year that King Uzziah died, and you could spend a whole time just talking about King Uzziah and the significant person that he was to the people of Israel at the time when Isaiah was called. Why? But what is probably more significant why his name is here is really just the dating of the time, identifying the period in which this account of Isaiah is written. So, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord high and exalted, seated on a throne, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their faces, with 2 they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. And they were calling to one another, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. The whole earth is full of his glory. At the sound of their voices, the doorposts and thresholds shook, and the temple was filled with smoke. So you get the real picture. It's as if Isaiah is creating a picture of some earthquake shaking right here. So that was that kind of sense of the experience that Isaiah was having as he had this encounter, when he saw the Lord. Woe to me, I cried. I am ruined, for I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. And my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of Almighty. Then one of the seraphim flew to me with a live coal in his hand, which he had taken with tongues from the altar. With it he touched my mouth and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your guilt is taken away, and your sin atoned for. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? And I said, Here am I. Send me. Here am I. Send me. Here am I, despite all of what I have discovered about myself in this encounter. And I'll come back to that in a little while. Because Isaiah's whole story was significantly impacted by his vision of the Lord. I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up. And the picture that Isaiah seems to be painting here is that I had a glorious vision of who the Lord was. I had a magnificent picture of who the Lord was. He was not just an ordinary king sitting on some earthly throne. He was high and lifted up above every other stately rulership, every other kind of leadership, every other kind of governance. He was above that. And his presence was so complete that his very robes filled out the temple, the place of worship, the place of encounter with God, the place of meeting with God, the temple. God full it up. That's the picture that Isaiah is painting. And I want to say that as we contemplate our sense of call, of all the things that contribute to that sense of call, the thing that must be most significant is our image of God and our understanding of God and our understanding of God's role in this call. If I am not seeing the Lord, if I am not seeing God in my call, something is missing. And it is not going to be sustained. Because there are so many things that are going to challenge that sense of call. So it's so important. And it's important not only to have a one-off picture of the Lord, a one-off glimpse of who God is. But this is why it is so important for every minister to have an ongoing encounter with God, an ongoing encounter with the Lord, so that this sense of who God is always being built upon, is always becoming more fuller, more complete. Whenever we go, because sometimes we go through periods in our Christian life, even as pastors, even as ministers, where we can go through periods of questioning even our faith, questioning who God is. And that is one of the reasons why it is so important for us to, out of our walk with the Lord, to have these encounters in which we come to see who God is and understand God more and more. And we must never get to the place where we feel like we know God enough. our devotional life is dispensable, or our experiences with God is something that we can put on in at file 13 or put on holiday. Whenever we have an opportunity, whether it is in our personal devotional life, whether it is through special occasions where we have, revival and prayer meetings and other kinds of occasions for deepening our walk with the Lord, or whether it is encounters, divine encounters with God that we seek out, that are unique to you and your walk with God. Some of those will come without you even seeking it. But sometimes you can be in a place where, God, I want more. And
Let me
out of
see. Let me
the
see.
the
Let me see where the timer is on your
authenticity of your search, God give you more of himself. It's like um
Let me see
I
where the
think it was
timer
Moses who
is on
said,
your
I
phone.
want to see more, I want to see you. And God said, you sure you can manage that? and God ended up showing him like a part of him back. Held him in the cleft of the rock and passed by and give him like a glimpse, a further glimpse of who he was. I'm saying Isaiah's call was built upon who he saw God to be. And that's going to be true for you and for me. That the bigger God is the more committed we will be to his call in our life. And the more we will seek to fulfill what he wants us to fulfill. Right? It's bigger than the United Church. It's bigger than any denomination. Who God is. And so his call on your life must be based upon who God is to you. Who have you encountered God to be? Who have you seen God to be? Isaiah, at the outset of describing this sense of call, had this vision of the Lord that stood out in his life. But for Isaiah, what that vision of the Lord did for him was it brought him to a place of introspection. And as he looked at himself, he saw his own incompleteness. He saw his own impurities.
Oh, Rev, this screen not changing. I don't know if we're changing the screen or not, but
Yes, it not changing.
no, no.
Um, thank you
Yes,
for that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yes, we can see it now. Slide 5, Isaiah saw himself. Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Are you seeing that now?
Yes, yes, yes.
And are you seeing his impurities come up?
Yeah, yes, we're seeing everything. We're
Yes,
seeing
yes.
everything now. We're seeing that everything now. Yes.
Okay, excellent. So Isaiah, out of that encounter with God, saw himself and saw his own inadequacies. And make I tell you something. The man or woman of God who is so full of themselves that they don't have a sense of their own inadequacy is somebody who's heading for a fall and going buck up in our wall. And it isn't that we must wallow in our sinfulness or wallow in our imperfections or wallow in our the things that are iniquitous about our lifestyle and choices. There are like secret sins that you might have. Some of them sin them might not be big sin. You might not murder nobody. You might not commit fornication. You're not, hopefully you're not beat your wife. you know. Um, but sometimes there can be iniquitous attitudes that you have. And one of the things about this encounter with God that Isaiah had was that he saw himself more completely. And that is an important impression to have, that we must see ourselves and see that we're not all that. Not that we are not worth something that our God wouldn't call us. You know, not that God is not taking us someplace that is important. Not that God might not use us in mighty ways. But if we ever allow our sense of ourself to make us feel as if we're perfect and we're better than other people, and that our sin not all that bad, you know, one of the things that I've been sort of grappling with in the last couple of weeks is some preaching that I've been hearing about consecration. Consecration. You know, men of God who have felt called to very sacrificial ministries, and how God took them to a place of consecration where they felt, you know, they gave everything to God. That's the kind of picture, I believe, that I want you to take away from Isaiah's sense of call. He sees God, and in the mirror of God, he sees himself for all his inadequacies, for all his imperfections, all his impurities, all his iniquitous attitudes and tendencies. He sees himself. And yet, having had that experience of purification, having had that sense of purification, you know, that live coal that is taken from the altar and symbolically placed on his lips as a mark of purification, he was able to come to the place where he didn't feel that his impurities and his sinfulness and imperfections disqualified him from ministry. Because that's what happened to some of us sometimes. We feel to ourselves, boy, we're not good like that the one day. We're not holy like that the one day. We don't hear to talk like that the one day. We don't really have it like that. You know, look upon what the pastor that can do this, and what that the person that can do that. But when we place ourselves in the hands of God, and we're able to openly confess and express who we are with our impurities, and when we experience what it means to repent of those impurities and to walk away, then that very, you being the same persons with your impurities and so on, becomes the very person that God wants to use. God wants to use your life. That's why he has called you. And so in the face of all of Isaiah's encounter with God, he is sensitive to the voice of God calling out, beckoning him and saying, come, now look somebody for work. Now looking for nobody to go for us a show. I'm looking for somebody to work, to be available, to win souls for Christ, to transform lives like how I am transforming yours, to transform communities like how I am able to transform your life. God calls Isaiah. Isaiah hears the voice of God. He knows of his impurities, and he knows of the purifying vision that he has received of the coals being placed on his lips. The purification is sufficient for him to feel justified in responding. Who will go for us? Here am I, Lord, he says. And if you can imagine the tone in which Isaiah says that, here am I, Lord. You can imagine that it's not a triumphal sense of, all right, yeah, see me, here I am. You know, the boat can't sail without me, see me. Not after what God has done, not after what God just do with him. And giving him that sense of his own imperfections and his own inadequacies and his own need for purification, his own need for consecration and holiness. If God brings that awareness to him and God takes him through a process of cleansing. So it is a humble Isaiah who responds to God's voice when he says, here I am. Here I am, Lord. Here I am, Lord. Send me. I think I'm ready now. I think I'm ready now, Lord. And there'll be a lot of preparation, a lot of things that God will take you through to take out some of the impurities that you will bring. Impurities in your character, impurities in your history and background, impurities in your day-to-day life, impurities in your attitude. He will clean it up. But having cleaned it up, he never wants any of us to feel as if we have arrived. Here I am, Lord, send me in all the humility of knowing my imperfections and knowing that were it not for your cleansing power, were it not for your mercy and your grace, I would be on some dump heap. Because that's how I feel. When Isaiah says, you know, woe is me, for I am undone, and everybody around me are some dirty people. I live in the midst of dirty people. In spite of all of that, God takes him to that place where he feels sufficiently ready. And God is going to take you through different places that will remove some of the imperfections, that will plant some skills in you. But hopefully, in all of that, it will allow you to be able to maintain the humility that Isaiah did when he says, here am I. Here am I. Send me. I will go, Lord. I will go not because I'm better than anybody else. I will go because you called me. And you are the big God that I see in this picture. You are bigger than me. You are bigger than United Church. You are bigger than Jamaica. You're bigger than the world. That is the God to which I feel myself called. And God is going to clarify what he's calling you to do, whether it is just pastoral ministry or other areas of ministry. God will clarify all of that in the months and years ahead for you. What's most important is your vision of God and your willingness to humbly say, here I am. Here we go. Send me. And so with that, I really just want to encourage you as you begin this step. I kind of step over my time, but I hope Mr. doesn't mind that we have had a little extra time. But I really want to encourage you as you make these strides, as you make these steps into ministry, that you have a sense of what God is calling you to and how God wants to use you. I'm just wondering, as we kind of wrap this up, what strikes you out of that description of Isaiah's sense of call? What speaks to you in this moment as we reflect on that?
But you want to go first, Brother Andrew?
Not a problem. Right. What jumps out at me is willingness.
Mm-hmm.
In order for you to really fulfill that which you are called for, you have to be willing.
Yeah.
So that's what jumps out at me. Here am I. Send me.
Send me. I'm willing.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks for that.
What jumps out at me after listening to the presentation is the fact that some ministers, a certain amount, may face, and I faced this in my journey, certain ministers may face that sense of not being good enough for the ministry. Either they compare themselves with those who are already in the ministry. They may say, I'm not like that guy, or I'm not like that lady, so I don't think I can do this. They speak too well. They are too smart. They are too qualified. I don't think I can do this. Or they may think to themselves, my life, my past, the reputation I have, there is no way I'm qualified for this. Or they may say, the challenges that I have, the struggles that I face, the temptations that I have a proclivity toward, doesn't indicate to me that I should make any steps toward this, because these things are going to be a deterrent. And I would always, what I got from this is that whenever these questions arise, we must always direct the answer to God. God is the one who qualifies you. God is the one who shapes you. God is the one who preserves you. He is the one who sanctifies and transforms you. So, you thinking that you're not good enough because of X, you must always answer that X with God. I am qualified with God. I am going to be successful in the ministry with God. And without God, I'm not qualified. Without God, I will fail. So the answer should always go back to God. With Isaiah, it is not a surprise. It is not unusual for us to assume that maybe he thought to himself, I am not qualified, because he said, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I live among a people of unclean lips. He's telling God, God, I am wicked. God, I am evil. God, my heart is black. Because as we know, the scripture says, from the heart the mouth speaks. So if you say your mouth is unclean, then that means your heart is unclean. He's saying to God, no, I don't think I can do this. I'm too unholy. You bring it back to God. Of course you're too unholy. Of course you are. But with God and his cleansing power, his sanctifying power, he will make you qualified. He will make you able. Because without him, you can't do it anyway. So that's what I gleaned from this.
But one of the things that I've heard said is that God doesn't always call the qualified, but He qualifies the call. So that what is most important is for us to be clear about the call. For if we are clear about the call, no matter how inadequate we feel, God will equip us so that we can do what He wants us to do. Sometimes when we come overly qualified, our assurance and confidence is in our qualification rather than in our reliance on God. You know, and so it's so important to have that balance in our understanding of our sense of call. Anything else? Anything else kind of stir up? Anything else strikes you?
Want to go first, Andrew?
No, you go.
All right. I just wanted to ask you before I went ahead. Make sure you didn't want to go before. What else? What else I could? What else strikes me is, as Andrew Goldborn said, the willingness to go, the willingness to go. But because of the Reformed tradition that I am from and that I belong to, I believe that God is the one who ordains that you are willing. He's the one who works in your heart to enable you to be willing to go. Because I'm with Augustine on this, in that we have free will, but our free will is founded upon and consistent with our nature. Our wills are consistent with our nature. So, when God regenerates you, when God transforms you, when God gives you the new birth, there is a transformation of that nature that has different desires. And because that nature has different desires, your will changes. Your will changes. What you want becomes different than what you wanted. What you want now becomes different than what you wanted in the past. So because Isaiah was willing, when you look at the overall view of Scripture, the overall teaching of Scripture regarding the will, God's sovereignty, God's power, God's grace is what makes the minister willing. Because you can look at a minister who's been serving for 40 years, and the whole time he's been willing to do it. He's been willing to do it in spite of and despite what he goes through. And many can say that a minister would go through certain things that only a supernatural being working in his heart could enable him to continue. We have ministers, I'm sure, that are serving God and advancing the kingdom, who have lost their wife, or who have lost their children, or who have lost a loved one, and they still keep going. They still stay in the ministry despite what they go through. What else but a supernatural being working in their heart to keep them willing? So that strikes me as well. The willingness of Isaiah, and the fact that it is because of the power of God that enables him and makes him willing to continue in the ministry after being ordained and being drawn into the ministry.
Got you. Well, friends, it's been my joy to just share with you, to get to have an initial meeting with you. I trust that as the process progresses, the whole trajectory that will lead you to come to join me here at UTC will open up, and that and that hopefully I'll meet you at a more personal level as students. Um, so I really want to wish you all the best in this process of discernment and in this whole um, preparation for ministry, and certainly in the future in your exercise of ministry. I'm particularly happy that you are adding to the cadre of men because generally speaking, there's a significant challenge to find more and more men who are available to do ministry or many other things. You know, we have less male teachers. We have less men in some of the crucial areas of society life, social life. But I am so happy that you are making yourselves available for the Lord to use you in ministry. And so, with that, let me hand over to Reverend Stone, um, and I will soon take my leave.
I
Reverend,
just
you.
one more thing before you go, Red.
Yes,
Right.
Andrew.
Another thing that draws my attention is also know who calls you,
Yes.
because it's just like another character that I would use here is David,
Hmm.
because David know who his God is and what his God can do. He was able to face Goliath, knowing that his strength doesn't lie within him, but within the God that he serves. So when you know who calls you, you
Yes.
can you can let go on anything that you are holding on to, and know that, well, your life is safe in his hands.
Absolutely.
So that's the other thing that shocks me.
Got you. Got you. All right. Thanks. Thanks again, guys.
And many thanks, Doc. Um, it's important for us to see God, who God is really, not just to see God, but also to know God, but
Yes.
also for us to see ourselves, as we really are, and as how God sees us. Not to overestimate ourselves, not to underestimate ourselves either, but to have the right view, and also to see the state of things around us and the state of people. So I think that was a very fantastic presentation, Rev, and I think it was well received by the candidates and by myself also. So many
Thank you.
thanks for that, and we hope we can see you again, and as I say, everything can work out, and maybe Andrew and Everton join you at UTC
Absolutely.
at earliest possible time. Yes.
Yes.
So yeah. So many thanks again to you.
Now go and keep a cottage up there for them.
Yes. Yes. We have part two. We have two other persons in part two.
Okay.
Part Neil, his accountant. You might know him. He
Yeah,
goes
I
to
know Peter.
sometimes.
Yes.
And Yashai from the Surrey Council. So I mean Southern Regional Mission Council. So we have two, and more than likely they would go on to UTC September. So they're in
That's
the second phase.
got you. Got
So
you.
Yashai and Pastor Dean.
All
So
right. I'm gonna run away. Is that all right?
yes, no problem, no problem.
All right, gents. Take
All the best.
care. Please.
Let's doc.
Yes. All right. So we have come to the end. Um, and so I want to thank you for your sharing this morning and for your participation in all of today's presentations. Your homework for next month is to talk to some persons from your congregation to find out what they look for in a pastor. So the members of your church, you can talk to them and have them give you some things that they look for in a pastor. But don't just talk to one, but get diverse answers from the
Is
congregation.
is there a specific number that you expect, or should it be arbitrary between me and Andrew?
Yeah, you can decide how much, but make it more than one.
Okay.
At least two. Yeah, at least two. But the more you speak to, it would be the better. You'd have a broader perspective. But at least two.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, and then you will share
Okay,
on that.
Reverend Stone.
Yes. And we'll have a speaker coming to speak to that also. He's a lay pastor, and he will also share on some of the qualities that lay persons generally look for in a pastor. And especially when they want to call somebody to become their pastor, there are some qualities that they look for.
All right, not a problem, Rev.
And just to also say to you, Everton, I listened to two of your sermons so far. I've not listened all of them, but I listened to two. The one about the joy of the Lord, and the one about becoming a man. So um, maybe I will call you and talk with you about it because I guess it might be a little bit late now because it's almost 1:15. But I'll call you as soon as possible and I will share what I share my thoughts and everything.
All right. All right. All right. All right. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Yes. So all the best and see you again next month. Same second Saturday next month.
Same to you, Rev.
And that is it. Let's end this here. Thank you all for watching. God bless. God bless. This is my one of the steps in my journey to become a reverend. Let me see if I can turn on my camera here. Yeah, so this is one of the steps that I have to take to become a reverend. I have to go through a discernment phase that I am grateful for, because either I go through this discernment phase or I just become a reverend like that. And I prefer to go through the phase of discernment, where they put you through a process for you to ascertain if God has truly called you or not. Right? Thank you all. God bless you. And have a fantastic day, night, or evening, whichever time you have watched this video. Bye.